Well, hey fans, welcome back to another movie review, and today we're talking about The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. So, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes is a dystopian action film directed by Francis Lawrence, starring Tom Blyth, Rachel Zegler, Viola Davis, Peter Dinklage, Jason Schwartzman, Hunter Schafer, and many other names. And this is a prequel to the other four Hunger Games films, technically three. The last one was split into two, and this one follows President Coriolanus Snow when he was young, and basically his rise to power, how he got somewhat to the beginnings of the position of eventually ruling Panem. And I have to say, I actually really enjoyed this film. I remember when I first saw the original Hunger Games movies, it was a girl at my college. I had never seen them. I didn't really care. She said, you should definitely watch the first Hunger Games. It's really good. It's actually filmed like very close to where I went to college. So I watched. I was like, wow, this is a really good movie. And by the time the second one came out, I was working at a theater. And the second one was amazing. And then you get to, the third and the fourth one. And they were okay. It kind of fell off for me at that point. But, once I heard that they were doing a sequel about President Snow, I was really interested, and I wanted to see exactly what that story would be. And in watching it, and watching how Tom Blyth portrayed Snow as a young man, it was excellent. This is like the Darth Vader, or the Anakin Skywalker becoming Darth Vader story in the Hunger Games world. And I really enjoyed his relationship with Lucy Gray Baird, and how they basically, I forget which Hunger Games this is. I think it's like the 10th annual Hunger Games. And at this point in the story, the ratings are down. The ratings are down, and they're in the Capitol. They're basically people aren't really caring to watch this. We should cancel it. Now imagine how great it would have been if the ratings continued to go down and they just canceled the Hunger Games and there wasn't all these kids being killed for decades and decades. But of course, following Snow as he's trying to get the Plinth Prize, this movie explains so much more about the Capitol that you didn't get in the original films. There are poor people in the Capitol. At least during this time period, there are poor people in the Capitol. And Snow is one of those. His family was originally wealthy, but after the war and his father died, they kind of lost a lot of their standing and a lot of their money. So just because you live in the Capitol, yes, it's better than being in the districts where you don't have to compete in the Hunger Games, but you can still be a poor person and just live around all these rich people and just luckily not be offered up as tribute as a kid. So luckily he's going to the school and he's trying to just become one of these top students. And this year with the Hunger Games, each of these top students get to pretty much pick a tribute and basically be their coach, which is something we see later on in the Hunger Games movies. And his tribute is Lucy Gray Baird, portrayed by Rachel Zegler. And it works. It works well. Their love story, you can actually see him kind of falling for this girl and being why are we doing this and what is going on? And I really do. He wants his cake and eat it too. He wants to have his cake and eat it too. He wants to fall in love with this girl and pull her out of the troubles that she's in, but he also wants to move up within the society and bring back his family's name. So he has a great relationship with his cousin Tigress, who in the other film, she actually looks like a tiger, but this is before her and Snow had a falling out. So she's his greatest confidant. She dresses him, makes him look nice. She's played by Hunter Schafer. And her role is really small, but I think she does it phenomenally. And it's a great bond that we see them having, because she's known him since he was a child. She's a little bit older, so she remembers his father more than even he does. And she kind of sees those similarities and tells him not to be the type of guy that his dad was. And like I said, I enjoyed that all. Rachel Zegler, the whole song, you find out the origins of the song, come into the tree. I don't remember the title of it, but it works in this film. Why she sings it, why the rebellion uses that as their song. Her character, you really don't know whose side she's on, and you kind of understand. And I have not read the book, but understand in the book it is a little more nuanced as to whether she betrayed Snow, and that's what turns them to the dark side. You get more into their heads, but in the movie, I think they do a decent job of explaining that. So one thing that I really enjoyed, or not that I enjoyed really, that I kind of wanted or thought would happen, this movie is good enough. It could have been split into two stories. Halfway through the movie, after the Hunger Games is over, it becomes a totally separate story about Snow being sent to the districts where he meets up with Lucy Gray again. And I think the entire second half could have been a second movie. But I think after the fan disappointment with the last Hunger Games movie being split into two, the studio didn't want to take that risk with splitting the story into two. And I understand that, but I do think the story was good enough that they could have done that. And speaking of the Hunger Games, that's why we are here. I really like seeing a pre-Hunger Games where, you know, they're still kind of trying to get like the drone stuff figured out. The technology's not as great. You know, they're coming up with ideas on the fly on how to make this, you know, more interesting. You got Jason Schwartzman, who is playing a ancestor of Lucky Flickerman, who is the father or grandfather, I'm not exactly sure, I think he might be the grandfather of Caesar Flickerman. And they do mention that I have a child, I'm trying to have like this dinner with my wife and all that. But he is like a spot on impersonation of Stanley Tucci. They could be like related how well that, you know, Jason Schwartzman plays that character. But back to Tom Blyth, his portrayal of Snow is really phenomenal. And his friendship with Sejanus Plinth, I think, is one of the most intriguing friendships I've seen in film in a while, because you can definitely see he like cares for his friend and wants his friend to make smart choices, but his friend unfortunately continues to make dumb choices. And then at a certain point, Snow's like, I'm sick of this, and he's just going to use it to his advantage. And you can tell like he's trying to do his best to not have his friend be in the situation, but his friend, he does not use his family's wealth properly. I'll say that much. And before I forget, Peter Dinklage is Casca Highbottom. This character, he starts the movie and you're thinking he's one way. But by the time you get to the end, he gives you all this backstory on exactly how the Hunger Games started, his relationship with Snow's father. And it is so deep. It is so deep. He becomes a very much a Snape type of character. A Severus Snape is exactly what he is for this universe. And that's why I said this universe is great. It builds so much and it learns from the mistakes of the past, and it just creates characters that you really want to know about. Viola Davis's character is just basically pure evil in terms of like an evil scientist, and the way that she decides to, you know, create these things is basically the beginning of all those evil creatures you see in the later films. This is a great movie. It is a great movie, and I just wish we could get more from this universe. But you know, the score is great. The cinematography is great. I think overall this is a well-made film. In terms of a score, I'm going to give it a decent 7.5 out of 10. I really want to come back to this world, and I kind of want to see if they can kind of squeeze in more, you know, mid-cool Hunger Games in between like this movie and the ones that came after. And the whole world of Panem, like what in this film, you know, Rachel Zegler's character, she escapes to the north, which would be Canada. Like what's up there? What's in Canada? What's in Mexico? What's in Europe? What does the rest of this world look like? Do they just kind of ignore Panem? Is Panem kind of like a Russia type state that they just kind of like, we're going to leave them alone, let them do the thing? Like what does the rest of this world look like? And that is the essence of a good film. It draws me in and it makes me want to know more, although the story it tells is kind of fine on its own. It's like giving me a taste. Like if you're at a nice restaurant, you're like, man, that was a great steak. I wonder what the chicken's like though. So I think that they could definitely make more of these films and make them interesting. I'd like to thank you guys for joining me for another movie review. Remember, you can watch the full review on YouTube and the website, flipfrogllc.com/flicksfrog. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Reddit. And please, pretty please, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, I'll be seeing you.